Hi, it's Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and it's time to look at week 9 in preview. And first of all, I'll look back at week 8 for briefly to tell you I predicted 8 of the 13 winners last week. That makes my season percentage 65.7%, which is low for me, and I'm not happy with it. Got to do better. I'm not blaming myself for the Falcons and Bengals, but who could have seen those coming last week? But I should have gone with my gut instinct regarding Houston beating San Fran and Green Bay beating Pittsburgh, but I didn't. I went with the stats rather than my gut. So lesson learned there. And I just basically got the Bears and Baltimore game wrong. So fess up to that one. Um, right. Fantasy wise last week, some good ones I put out there were Bo Nix and Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Brees Hall at running back, whatever running backs did I have, Jonathan Taylor, yeah, he has a good week every week, but I knew he'd have a really big one against Tennessee, and he did. Wide receivers, Troy Franklin was one I picked out from the undergrowth. Christian Watson on his return, I said he had a nice game, and he did. And DK Metcalf did okay as well. Tight ends, Mason Taylor, I gave as a possible low end prospect if you were struggling at tight end, and he did well in that regard. Um, who else have we got? Tucker Craft, he had a great game. And then on the defenses, I gave you the Chargers, Houston, and Bills, who all had great games. Kickers, I did all right with Andy Borregales from New England, Matt Prater, um, and also, who's the other one? Looking down the list here, Chase McLaughlin, who's on my own fantasy team, so I should have remembered him. So did all right in fantasy last week. Right, so let's get to this week. After this week's action, we will be at the midpoint of the regular season, and as far as I'm concerned, before we've even got there, 8 teams are done in terms of making the postseason. They would be Arizona, the New York Giants, New Orleans, Las Vegas, Cleveland, Miami, the New York Jets, and Tennessee. So sorry to fans of those teams, but I'm writing you off already. There are 4 other teams that I think are getting close to that mark, they being Dallas, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Washington. So they go into week 9 needing a string of wins to make their postseason hopes more realistic. One or two more losses for them, and they're done. So we probably have 20 teams fighting for the 14 postseason spots after just 8 weeks of action. So by the time we get to half time, I think it's just going to be 14 from 20. So who is going to improve their chances and whose chances will diminish in week 9? Well, in part 1 of this preview, I'm just going to look at the Thursday night game. Baltimore Ravens at the Miami Dolphins. Now, these are 2 AFC teams that come in with 2 wins apiece. The Dolphins, though, are well adrift in their divisional race, which is why I've ruled them out of postseason contention because the wild card, I don't think they can get it. Whereas that route beyond week 18 is still open to Ravens via winning their division. But this one is probably a must-have for Baltimore, and they welcome Lamar Jackson back as he seeks to continue that run for the postseason that they've got underway, and they're looking to build momentum now as they seek to catch the Bengals and Steelers in the AFC North. Regarding the Ravens, you've really got to ignore all their season-long stats. The defense has conceded just 33 points in its last 2 games. It has allowed yardage, but has only conceded 3 touchdowns across those 2 games, which were also their best 2 games of the campaign against the run. So ignore the defensive rankings for the Ravens along the season. It's really about the recent history that counts, and they're in form. And like I say, it looks like Lamar Jackson will be back for this game too, which could transform the offense in a similar way. In the 3 games Jackson played at the start of the season, they scored 30 plus in all of them and 40 plus in the first 2. They've averaged just under 16 points a game without him. Now they did better with Snoop Huntley at quarterback last week, but generally, as you would expect, Lamar Jackson being out has been a huge miss for them. So him being back is huge. The Dolphins' D has been good against the pass, but pretty poor against the run, which is not good news for them with Jackson back. The Dolphins have allowed more rushing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks than any other team this season. Offensively, the Dolphins rank outside the top 20 for both pass and rush, so against an informed Ravens D could be set to struggle. Tua has already thrown 10 picks this season, and more could come here, although the Ravens are a team that tend to break up passes rather than pick them off. They don't have a lot of interceptions themselves this season, but maybe they're going to get 1 or 2 here. The Dolphins have had 3 games without an offensive turnover this season, and they won 2 of them. So they have to avoid turnovers if they want to win this one. Well, that rule generally applies to everybody, accepted that you don't turn the ball over, you're going to do okay. But it's particularly important to the Dolphins. That's why I mentioned that. I expect the Ravens to keep the Dolphins to 21 points or fewer in this game, whilst Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry could be set to dominate on the ground as the Ravens get back to their early season scoring power and get the win here to keep their recovery run to the postseason going. So I'm going to take the Ravens to run out quite easy winners here in Miami by 31 points to 20. So that's how I see the Thursday night game. Um, Upcoming pieces to make you aware, well, there'll be part 2 and part 3 of the week 9 preview, which part 2 will cover the Sunday early slot and part 3 will cover the remainder of the games this week. And I'm also going to put out uh, a mock draft for the 2026 draft. Now, the draft is what I consider to be a real expert in. That's my area of strength as I see it. I don't normally go in for mock drafts, but what I've done is the 8 teams that I mentioned earlier as being out of contention for this season, I think they're going to occupy the first 8 picks in the 2026 draft. So I've had a look at what their options might be with those first 8 picks and what might happen as a result, including 1 or 2 possible trade options and to trade forward or back. So I always see mock drafts as a bit of a game because, you only takes one surprise pick or a trade up and down, and the whole subsequent point picks become irrelevant. It's a complete guessing game. So it's a bit of fun, and I'll indulge in it to try and show you what I think might happen in those first 8 picks. So look for that coming up in the next day or two. Having done it, having sort of written it, but not recorded it. At the point I finished writing it, I thought, this is really exciting. It really started getting me thinking that 2026 draft is already something to get excited about. So look forward to that. See you soon.